Yo, welcome back to the channel. In the last video, we were talking about functions. And the reason we were talking about functions is because we have to talk about this thing called asynchronous programming. Well, what is asynchronous programming? I'm gonna give y'all a really quick overview, and then we're gonna hop into some signal handling and creating actions for those signals based on this asynchronous programming understanding. So let's get into it. So I already created the video, and I got to recreate the video because I messed up the recording. So I'm recreating it. Here we go. So asynchronous programming. What is asynchronous programming? So it kind of goes back off the concept of the program reading line by line by line our commands. Right? Got line 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we got, let's say this is a synchronous command, a synchronous command, a asynchronous command. Let's call this async 1. And then a synchronous command. And then another async command. Let's call this async 2. And then another synchronous command. All right. And so that's what our, let's call it our call stack. This is what our call stack look like. So basically this is we call this, we call that line, we call that line. If these are functions, let's say, let's not call it the call stack. This is what our program stack look like, really. Like, these are where our instructions are. These are our instructions. And so it's going to read this synchronous instruction. And so what is a synchronous instruction? A synchronous instruction is an instruction that takes, like, I don't know, some amount of time, quick as hell amount of time to finish. So the CPU will read this instruction, and it'll be like, okay, read it and processed it within the amount of time for a synchronous process to have occurred. Basically, if this process doesn't take longer than, let's say, X amount of seconds, then okay, it's a synchronous process. So then we can move on to the next one. We have completed that. Let's process this one. Cool, that's synchronous. Bet. Well, now we have to fire off this asynchronous process. And let's say with the asynchronous process, there is with the asynchronous process, it gets fired off, but then it takes forever to come back. So what the CPU does says it has this thing over here called the call or the callback queue. All right, and the callback queue is real dope. I think I lost my connection to my iPad. Let me see. No, we good. We got it. All right, and the callback queue is real dope. The reason it's dope is because we have callback queue, and then we can put our asynchronous program or our asynchronous processes on here, and we can come back to them, right? And so a queue is like a list, for real. It's like a line. The first in is the first out. So I get in line first, and then there's a person behind me, and the person behind me, I get out first, the person behind me gets out second. That's what a queue is. And so we put in the async 1. This is the first thing that gets processed when we come to this callback queue. When the CPU takes a trip over to the callback queue. But when does it? When does the CPU take a trip to the callback queue? Well, it doesn't really go until it finishes that next synchronous process. It's going to fire that out. It finished, and then it's going to come here and see another async process, and it said, oh, another async process, throw that one on the queue, and then boom, that's synchronous. Cool. And so once it finishes those processes, then it comes over here and it says, okay, let me handle async 1. And if async 1 has come back and it's finished and has been updated as finished or whatnot, completed, well, then this async 1 gets handled. And how does it get handled? Well, there's some data that comes back, and so we need to process that data however the program wants to process it. And so it handles that, kicks it off the queue, and then goes down to async 2, and then says, async 2, are you done? And what if async 2 said, nah, I'm not done yet? So what would happen is the program counter would say, all right, I got another list of commands that I need to run for lines 6 through 18. And after I finish that list of commands, then I'm going to come back up and see, are you done yet? Now, async 2. And async 2 said, all right, bet, I'm done now. And then async 2 gets handled. and we write the how does it get handled. Well, we have a function that has a list of commands that we learned how to do in over the previous videos, and so those commands are going to tell us how to handle that data coming back. So this was the purpose of understanding functions, because we need our functions in order to handle these things that are asynchronously happening. And so what are some more things that happen asynchronously in our project? Well, first let's take a pause. You understand asynchronous programming, so that's big. You know that is pretty much that the program is going to fire each command line by line, and given the time that the command takes to process and finish is how we determine if it's going to be a synchronous process or an asynchronous process. And if it's an asynchronous process, we throw it on the callback queue. We finish running the synchronous code, and then boom, we come back to the callback queue and we run the code there. And so the way I like to explain this in a humanistic perspective is, think about someone creating a big Thanksgiving meal or something, right? And you got the whole family at the crib, and you're telling yourself you need to cook, but then you also need to interact with the family. And so you're like, well, I want to get the cooking done. Well, this will be an example of a synchronous process: getting the cooking done and then interacting with the family. The family has to wait hours until you finish with the Thanksgiving meal for you to even want to interact with them and talk to them. Now, that's a synchronous process. Now, an asynchronous process would be you start in the meal, the family comes over, as the meal is cooking, you're interacting with the family, and then you're periodically checking back on the data to see if the process, let's see, the macaroni done, is the dressing done, all that, turkey done. So you periodically checking back and forth, but at the same time you're interacting with your family. You're doing two things at once, asynchronously. And then once one thing finished, you handle it, you put it away. Then once everything is done, then you could make the whole place. You feel me? That's asynchronous programming. Is I got this simple command that I could be doing, but I got this very, very complicated command that's going to take a long time. So as that command is processing, I'm going to handle other stuff, come back and check on it to see if it's done. If it's not done yet, then keep going. If it is done and it is signaled to me it's done, okay, cool. I'm going to come and handle that process however I need to handle that process. That's just asynchronous programming. You got that, man. And y'all, so pat yourself on the back, because we learned asynchronous programming to handle signals. As I just mentioned earlier, we got signals and we got actions. And so what is this idea of signals and actions? I'm going to introduce you to signals and actions in the next video. So stay tuned, because we going to get into some real good stuff with signals, actions, and event handling. Let's go. All right. Like always, follow me on the ground. Follow me here with a subscription and comment. Tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong. Appreciate it. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.